Hello and welcome to the Omnex webinar, IATF 16949 update, ASPICE and Functional Safety. Today's webinar is being presented by Roy Gray. Roy Gray is a manager for consulting, training, and quality at Omnex. Roy has extensive experience in quality management with quality management systems and included but not limited to IATF 16949, ISO 9001, ISO 17025, 14001, AS 9100, and many more. He's also trained in core tools, risk management, and automotive process approach, and customer-specific requirements. During this webinar, if you have any questions for Roy, please enter them in the Q&A box, and he will get to them to the best of his ability at the end of the webinar. The webinar is being recorded, and someone from Omnex will reach out to you with how to access the recording. All right, Roy, you can take it away.
Okay, thank you. So, good morning, everyone. Like Miles said, my name is Roy Gray, and I've been with Omnex for several years now. So just a little bit about Omnex. We are headquartered in Ann Arbor, Michigan. Well over 35 years of experience in not only automotive, but general manufacturing. Can also throw in there aerospace, medical device. Okay. Ann Arbor is the regional headquarters, but we also have offices in Berlin, Germany, in India, and in China. So we have many smaller offices throughout the world as well. And you can see where we are located throughout. Okay. There are 6 target markets that Omnex does get into. Obviously in automotive, very extensive automotive there. We also do work in aerospace. We work with several semiconductor companies as well, get into medical devices, and we're also getting pretty heavy into the EV, AV, okay, and then along with general manufacturing. And as you can see at the top of the screen, if you got any concerns or you want to look into more of the EV, AV, there's our website for that, and then also just a general for at omnex.com. IATF update. So now OEMs are getting into ASPICE and TISAX and different things like that. With the changes in the software, many of the IATF organizations are requiring their suppliers, and I'm talking about the OEMs, requiring their suppliers to use ASPICE for the embedded software. Okay. And also with VDA, they've recently updated their PPAP requirements, volume 2. Okay. And that also includes including software as part of that PPAP. Okay. So what has basically changed? There's been several sanctioned interpretations to IATF 16949, customer specific requirements. The OEMs are constantly changing those as well, so need to stay up to date on them. And then also talk a little bit about expectations for conformance to the ISO standards in management systems. Okay. Some of the new standards, you know, there's been some changes in there, just more for clerical. So some of these are going through rewrites right now, revisions. So, you know, stay up to date, make sure that when they are released that you get the latest version and see what changes is going to be to your management system. Okay. The sanctioned interpretations. So, and these are going from 2020 to 2021. I'm not really going to get into too extensive on these, but sanction interpretation 4 was revised to clarify that internal audit competency, maintenance, and improvements is not. It applies to all the auditors. Okay. Then 19, which was issued in August 2020, removed the requirements for suppliers to track the premium freight of their suppliers. And then 10, external labs, notes and paragraphs were removed. So kind of get into the standard notes there. And then in July 2021, SI3 was revised to include pandemics, cyber attacks, information on the technology, and also making employees aware of things and so including training and awareness in regards to the continuity plan. Okay. SI 21 was issued in 2021, and they added cyber attacks to the risk analysis. So we got to be looking at those, what can happen, pay very close attention to that as well, and making sure that you are testing for cyber attacks and to prevent them from getting into your own systems. Also, SI 22 was issued in July 2021, and it was in 7.2.1. And they added to reduce or eliminate risk to the organization, including training and awareness, along with cyber attacks. From 2021 to 2023, SI 23 was revised and was reissued in May 22. And that was in clause 4.4.1.1 for conformance of products and processes, also going to include material requirements. SI 24 issued in May 22. Annex A for the control plan, they added a note for automated processes, and also SI 25 and Annex A for the control plan, they added common control plan designation as well. Okay. Sanction interpretations for the rules for achieving and maintaining IATF. Many of these were issued and revised in 2021. Okay. So you can take a look at those. There's different ones that's going to be affecting us. Okay. So it affects the organizations that are going through the change. So just kind of go through these a little bit. And SI2 for February 2021, any special audits, they're there to verify the corrective actions for major nonconformances that are issued. Okay. We need to make sure that those special audits are showing improvement in customer performance. Okay. Also, they need to have certification bodies need to have a written report for each special audit that they do. Okay, including any identified nonconformities as well. SI 26 through 28 issued in February of 2021, aligning the audit plan output with the risk-based audit day calculation. So we got a table, 28 table 3, looking at the output of the audit planning, and SI 27, the audit plan to support the risk-based audit. Okay. I'm not going to go through this slide, but you can read this. It's just looking at the minimum audit days, and that's going to be looking at the risk. That's why tables were updated. Okay. So you can get all of these from the IATF website and take a look at them. But it's given a looking at the number of employees in IATF OEMs, and it's looking at how many hours we need to spend as certification auditors or certification body auditors need to spend with each of these areas. Okay. SI 9 and 10 in the rules issued in February 2022, they aligned with the IATF OEM names, okay, adding some new ones there and making the changes. SI 20 was revised and reissued of June of 2021, okay, and aligned with the release of the CARE for the Common CB Audit Report application, okay. And with some new programming change in the IATF database requiring stage 2 audits for letter of conformance. June 2021, SI 29 was issued to align the new programming for the IATF database, stage 2 letter, okay. September 2021, SI 3 and 4, they were revised, just looking at initial qualification and requalification for auditor certificates, okay. And then April 2022, SI 30 was issued, enhancement to the IATF database requiring CBs to indicate internal witness audits in the IATF database. And then in May 2022, SI 31 was issued, clarifying that the certification bodies are required to take appropriate action when changes could affect the capability of the client's quality management system. So any changes within client's quality management system, they have to take a look at very closely, making sure it's still going to be capable. Okay. CSR changes. There's been many changes since 2020, and this is going to go through 2021. So, you know, BMW's made changes, Ford Motor Company, the Geely Group, and General Motors. You know, all of these can be downloaded and looked at in the IATF website. Envico Group, Jaguar, Land Rover, and Mercedes-Benz, they've all updated theirs going back in 2022. Okay, and then also Stellantis, you know, the XFCA and PSA, they've made changes to their CSRs, and so has Volkswagen in March of 2022. Okay. You can also see too that FCA or Stellantis is requiring ASPICE for embedded software. So any organizations, suppliers that are developing software, they have to incorporate the ASPICE into that, and also made some changes to the MOG and LPA and CQI requirements. Okay. Common theme for CSRs. These are going to be above and beyond some of the requirements and could and we got to take a look at those as auditors. So suppliers need to pay close attention to their customers' customer specific requirements and making sure that they get incorporated into the processes, and we're going to meet all of those. So you know, looking at different things, managing the nonconformities, auditing products, so product audits, competencies of all personnel within the organization, and then also looking at cybersecurity. Okay. Some other standards that are going to that are impacting IATF, okay, in the automotive world. Obviously, we got IATF 16949, ISO 26262 for functional safety. Then we got the Automotive SPICE or ASPICE. Also looking at supply chain practices, and then SOTIF, cybersecurity, and agile APQP. So these are all things we got to look at where they apply to us and make sure that they get implemented. Okay. Embedded software for ASPICE. Okay. So in IATF 4.4.1, you know, we have to look and establish and maintain all of our processes. So got to make sure, you know, inputs are there, the output, looking at the sequence of interactions of other processes. Okay, looking at the sequence of the process itself as we go through and do audits. So that's what we need to do. So, you know, there's no requirement to have a process map, but that's the easiest way to show the sequence and interactions of the processes with each other. Okay. And then 4412, we have to be able to maintain documented information. All those registered to IATF, certified to it, we have to maintain, retain the documented information, maintain documented information. So documented processes, procedures, making sure they get reviewed and updated, okay? And making sure we do have records available to show that we are meeting all of those. Oops. Just looking at the enterprise process map here. So, if we're going to do a integrated management system with IATF, ISO 14001, ISO 45001, different things like that, we got to look into making sure all required processes in each of those standards are get incorporated into the process map. Okay, and making sure that the processes are addressing the requirements. When we look at new product development, that's where ISO 26262 for functional safety is going to fall into place. Same with ASPICE, okay, SOTF, and also looking at VDA 6.3, okay. And, about a month or so ago, we did a webinar for changes to the VDA 6.3 fourth edition. So if you're required to do that with your customers, make sure you get brought up to speed on that as well. Okay. Expectations for ASPICE, functional safety and cybersecurity. So, within the process map, wherever each of these standards require to have a process, integrate them into our current processes that we have. Okay. And if you got multiple process owners and the process for these process owners need to understand each of the processes. Okay. Process for ASPICE and the IATF requirements. So you have to be familiar with it. But that's where your subject matter expert's going to come into play in regards to ASPICE. Okay. So we also need to show that on the enterprise map. We got to look at the remote locations, making sure they're on the process map as well. Okay. And of course, process maps, they're there to also help auditors start formulating their audit trails as they go through it. Okay. Also keep in mind, process maps should be functional and not clause-based. I still see quite a few of those, and I work with the clients to get away from that. Expectations for the auditee, because one of the things it's coming down is the certification body auditors are going to have to look to make sure that processes for ASPICE are incorporated into the processes. They're going to get a little bit of training on that and making sure that they understand what they look for when they are auditing this, and it's got to be part of the scope. Okay. So if we have software development software suppliers here, you have to, it has to be part of your QMS scope. Okay. And the third party auditors are going to be looking at that. So process owners need to know what's going to be affecting the process, get familiar with the processes for ASPICE. Okay. So we need to consider all of that as well. Okay. Integrate everything in there, show it in the scope. That's going to be a change to your QMS scope. That's going to have to show that, we do have functional safety. We are software development and cybersecurity. And so we have to look at all of that and verify what is going on. And then as we go through the processes, making sure that everything got integrated into those processes. Okay. So neither IATF 6949 ASPICE, they can't operate in a silo. So that's why we need to take all of the ASPICE system processes and 8.3 in design and development of our products and services, and making sure that we have the same product and system throughout. So process owners that have common processes, they need to know each other's processes. Okay, so they have to understand them as they may be asked questions during an audit interview, and they need to know what's going on. Okay. So of course, the system processes, development, common processes, we got different ones. We got project management and ASPICE, quality assurance, problem resolution management, change management, okay, and supplier monitoring. So whatever the requirements are in ASPICE, we need to make sure that they're being covered in the IATF processes. In ASPICE, there's a V model. So, going down the left-hand side is we flow all the requirements down throughout. And then as we go up the right-hand side, this is where we're testing to make sure we're meeting all the requirements. Okay. And we have to do this on every design change as we go through it. Okay. And then in ASPICE, we got SIS 2 and 3. They're going to be aligned with 8.3.3 for design input. Okay. And then SIS 4 and 5, they're aligned with 8.3.4 for design development validation. So we have to look at the different the different diagrams that are there, looking at the requirements, and also looking at the interfaces. Okay. So the APQP program management, and also looking at gate reviews, making sure that where ASPICE has been incorporated, that we are looking at everything to ensure that we're meeting the requirements of ASPICE and also IATF 16949. So the DFMEAs and the DVP&Rs, related to the different functions, requirements, and traceability. So we got to do that not only for the hardware, but any software development. So it needs to be included on the DFMEAs. Software is growing and growing, and majority of the manufacturers, automotive, aerospace, for example, rely on a lot of software in order for the vehicles and the aircraft to fly. Okay. So just looking at it, just looking at the F-22 Raptor, there's 1.7 million different codes in there. Okay, different lines of code. So it's going to depend on what is required for each of these operations and how much code we're going to have to put in there. Okay, so it comes a lot, and everything's got to be tested to make sure it's going to function properly and it's going to work. So we need to do testing, and that's why, as we flow down the information and then testing it as we go up to make sure that when the product is released and the vehicles are sold, that everything's going to function the way it's supposed to function. Okay. In clause 7.5.1.1, for IATF, we have to have a quality manual. We have to show the different processes that's established. Also, we also have to have a matrix or some sort of document to show where customer specific requirements are being addressed within your processes. Okay. But reason why we're talking about it here is we also need to update the scope of the quality management system to include ASPICE, functional safety, product and product cybersecurity. Okay. Those are all going to need to be, your scope has to be updated, and wherever these other standards apply, you have to show that within the scope. So, just an example given here, design and manufacture of battery assemblies for the automotive industry that's manufactured in the city and state, okay, including the remote location, okay. So looking at the audit criteria, IATF 16949 2016 will be part of the audit criteria, and also we did include the different customer specific requirements. And we would also have to show that we're looking at third-party auditors are also looking at the functional safety standard ISO 26262, ASPICE, okay, and applicable regulatory requirements as well. Okay. So product and development of products with embedded software. So we need to have a process for quality assurance to make sure the embedded software is being used. So we have to look at ASPICE, and we also need to look at ISO 26262, part 6 of the standard for that. Okay. So we got to make sure we have the appropriate documented information for both of these. Also needs to be included in the quality management system internal audit process to look at all of this as well. Okay, so we need to make sure all this is being taken care of. And that's why third-party auditors are now being required by IATF to be looking and checking where there might be different records or work products that are required by both ASPICE and ISO 26262 part 6. Okay, so we're looking at those are basically the records. So they're going to be looking for that to make sure they're being completed. Of course, IATF does have a clause in it for automotive product with embedded software. Okay, so where we do have where organizations do have suppliers that develop the software, you know, it has to be implemented and they have to implement and maintain a process for software quality assurance, or ASPICE. Okay, and making sure that assessments are being done. Okay, looking at the supplier software development process. So using the risk-based approach, we need to ensure that our suppliers are doing what they're supposed to be doing as we flow all the information down to them. Okay, and that's what third-party auditors are going to be looking for as well. Okay, this is the V model in ASPICE. So as you can see in the red frame, these are processes within the VDA scope. And we can incorporate a lot of these right into our current processes, because in IATF, we have to have a documented process for change management. So as you can see under the support, they've got change management there. So whatever ASPICE requires needs to be incorporated into the IATF process, and the process owner needs to understand what these requirements are. Okay, so this is all throughout ASPICE and IATF. Okay. And of course, VDA volume 2 for PPA requirements, or PPAP. You know, they have included in there anything for software that's going to be required. So that's going to be part of the PPAP package now. If you have a requirement to follow VDA volume 2 for your customer. Okay. And these are the deliverables that's going to be required. So, and this is out of the volume 2 for the PPAP documentation that's going to be required. And as you can see, there's nothing really listed under the AIAG PPAP. Okay. And of course, dealing with preventing hazards and due to malfunctions in ISO 26262, and then dealing with hazards resulting from functional insufficiencies intended for the functionality. So ISO PAS 21448, which was released in 2019. Okay, so we're looking in this one, making sure that looking at any foreseeable misuse of the persons with using the product. Okay. So in ISO 26262 parts 2 through 12, there's 12 parts to this. Okay. This is the different things that we need to make sure if we have functional safety within our organization that we address them. Okay. So they need to be addressed. And yeah, as you look at part 6 here, these are the different parts of what we can look at. Okay. And part 6 is looking at product development at the software level. So we're looking at the software. Okay. And then making sure we integrate everything within the quality management system processes that from functional safety, making sure they're being addressed. Okay, and that's what certification body auditors are going to be doing, is making sure we address the requirements of ISO 262 into our processes and looking for the different work products or records. Okay, in each of the parts that that we need to take a look at. Okay. So, you know, product design in IATF has changed with the V model. So when we look at 8.3 in IATF, we also need to take a look and make sure that's incorporating all the requirements of ISO 26262 parts 4, 5, and 6 respectively, and has to also include the V model in there. Okay. There are common processes within 26262 and IATF. So make sure those common processes, we include all the requirements for functional safety into the QMS processes. Okay. And again, of course, process owners need to be aware and be knowledgeable in these requirements as well. Okay. So again, looking at IATF and functional safety, they can't operate in a silo. So we got to look at parts 4, 5, and 6 and make sure all those requirements are incorporated into the QMS product design process, the APQP process, making sure those are all in there. Process owners are aware of those requirements, understands them. And of course, part 7, making sure PFMEA's control plans, the inspection sheets, looking at the process capability. So we want to make sure everything gets incorporated and everything's identified in the PFMEAs as well as in the control plans of what we need to do. Okay. So again, functional safety also has a V model, so it needs to be incorporated into our quality management system. So we need to make sure that's going to include any hardware, software. Okay. So we can have a specialist team for that. And of course, our APQP program management gate reviews needs to make sure we review not only what's required for IATF, but also looking at what's required for ISO 26262. Okay. And of course, all FMEAs, design PFMEAs, DVPNRs, control plans, they also need to make sure we cover everything as it relates to our manufacturing processes. Okay. Looking at ISO 21434. Okay. So cybersecurity. So cybersecurity is being incorporated into product cybersecurity, and where we have something functional safety. We want to ensure that the vehicles, whether it's the automotive, definitely we don't want hackers to get in and take control of our vehicle at the risk that in reality could cause death and injury, not only to the persons in the vehicle, but outside the vehicle. So 21434 will provide a framework to enable cybersecurity management. Okay. This is everything that's the different requirements in cybersecurity. Okay. So, whatever's identified here, we'll have to incorporate into our processes, okay, common processes, and of course, making sure process owners understand these requirements, okay? So we got different annexes that is going to include different things as well. So connectivity, looking at the more complex and safety for security, we need to consider, inside and outside the car now. Okay. Many of us, we have vehicles, and if you got a vehicle with the adaptive cruise control, so we're looking at, it's got radar. So you set the distance between the vehicle in front of you, and your vehicle will automatically match that speed. So we need to make sure anything like that. So looking at Wi-Fi, GPS, anything like that that could be looked into, we got to think about cybersecurity for those different areas. So IATF is going to be changing, because we got to include this V model as well, where it's a requirement. Okay, so that's going to fall into 8.3 of IATF. Okay, and making sure everything, the requirements of clause 10, including the V model, is all there. So product cybersecurity engineering, we need to make sure everything gets done. Making sure that the product cybersecurity specifications get incorporated into all the specifications required by the customer. Okay, making sure those get flowed down. Again, we do have common processes between cybersecurity for products and IATF, so incorporate those requirements into your processes. Certification body auditors will be looking if you do have this. So again, looking at your scope to ensure that you are including product cybersecurity in there, and then looking at the processes, making sure they get incorporated. And so for ISO 21434, clauses 10 and 11 for product development and validation has to be incorporated into our APQP process, okay, for product design and development. So not only product design, but manufacturing process design, making sure everything's there. Again, process owners need to understand these requirements, okay? And then for production for 21434, these requirements get incorporated into the control plan as well, making sure that as we manufacture it, everything's going to be correct when we ship it to our customers and it gets installed into the vehicle. Of course, cybersecurity has a V model, so that's got to be incorporated into the APQP process for designing development. Okay, taking all those requirements, flowing them down to not only the processes, but to suppliers that may be part of this, okay? And then testing as we go back up the V. So, and of course, when we do our looking at program management, customer meetings, gate reviews, making sure that the requirements that 21434 are incorporated into the review as well. So, and also 21434 does have a risk analysis, so that needs to also be looked at, making sure that we cover everything for cybersecurity, okay, and making sure it's also called out in the control plans. Looking at different regulations here, so we got a UN regulation on informing provisions for concerning of approval of vehicles, and thinking about cybersecurity, making sure that the vehicles cannot be hacked. Okay. The new WP29 regulation has a large number of stringent and specific requirements for the OEMs of these vehicles. So there are 17 generic group of requirements, and looking at OEM specific, looking at the vehicle specific, and back-end servers holding vehicle data. So the OEMs are going to be responsible for implementing all these requirements and making sure they get flowed down to the suppliers. Okay. Looking at the most recent document by VDA enabling auditing of OEMs and contractual partners. Okay, looking at service organizations, making sure we comply with UN ECE requirements. Okay, so one of the things that certification body auditors need to look to see, are we addressing statutory and regulatory requirements into our processes and making sure that we are meeting them. So we need to make sure those are being met. So these have to be incorporated. Okay. And of course, there's going to be a rating scheme looking at the results, making sure that they're being adequately met. Okay. So, and then making sure we have a record that is going to be looking at the regulations showing that we are meeting these requirements. So understand the ACMS, definition for auto cybersecurity management system. Okay. So an automotive cybersecurity management system audit is a procedure for looking at the processes, making sure we are evaluating and making sure everything's being employed. Also, unlike the information security management system, which is generally certified by a TISAX in the automotive domain, automotive CMS is going to be specifically directing for protecting the road users or the general public. So that's going to be a little bit different than the TISAX or ISO 27001. The scope of this, looking at an audit performed in accordance with the requirements, so making sure that the internal audits are being completed as required. So OEMs need to make sure that those are being done, and we got appropriate approvals by the authorities. Okay. So again, it's up to the OEM to make sure all requirements are incorporated into the vehicle and before it is released to the public. Okay. So ASPICE for cybersecurity. Okay. So with that, we're incorporating what's required for cybersecurity into the ASPICE. So we need to make sure those requirements are part of that. Okay. Moving forward, for the German OEMs, they want ISO 27001 and TISAX implemented into their suppliers' quality management system. Okay, so we need to integrate ASPICE cybersecurity, functional safety into our products. Okay. Looking at the 27001, that's information management system. So we need to make sure there's going to be different controls that we're going to be able to protect not only your organization's internal employees, the sensitive data, but also protecting our customer sensitive data. Okay. And for the automotive trusted information security assessment exchange, so TISAX. Okay. So it does require a management system and it should be included with ISO 27001. Okay. For U.S. Department of Defense, legally, and NIST 800-171 is going to was required as of 2010. Now cybersecurity maturity is going to be required. Okay. And so it's also going to require management systems. It's also going to include 27001 as well. Okay. So for organizations that, you can see this coming down. We're gonna have to start looking at the ISO 27001, implementing that and incorporating and integrating it into the common processes and making sure those requirements are being met. Okay. What we can offer, we can do a gap analysis to your management systems, taking a look at the different standards, taking IATF and looking at the functional safety ISO 26262, ASPICE, ISO 21434 for product cybersecurity. Okay. So we can do that. We can train the personnel as well in those. And we can also start working with you, implementing and coaching the employees within there. Okay. We also can work with your engineering department to make sure all these requirements get incorporated. And also we could do assessments or do internal audits for you as well. Okay. So we got some upcoming public training, so we do have coming up in May, functional safety ISO 262. Okay. That will be done virtually. Okay. So we got that in May. We've also got a virtual classroom. That's May 15th. Okay. May 1 through 5, looking at also doing this as well for ASPICE. So certified assessment competent assessors for ASPICE. We got a class coming up in May as well. And also we got a class coming up for understanding ASPICE and including integration of ISO 26262 and IATF. Okay. Also got an upcoming class in May for internal quality assurance practitioners of automotive ASPICE. So keep a lookout for that. And also we've got a upcoming class in May for ISO 27001. Okay. For ASPICE training, there's different things we can help you with there, creating test cases for automotive software. So also looking at understanding automotive SPICE and making sure it's all integrated with functional safety and IATF. We can also help write effective requirements for test cases. Okay. These are all part of the training courses that it's coming up. And when we talk about cybersecurity, making sure there's different things, and these will all be covered in our classes as well, making sure everyone understands those requirements. And same thing with functional safety. We got do an introduction to autonomous and electric vehicles, functional safety, SOTIF, cybersecurity perspective. Okay. So this is a lot of what would be covered in the functional safety course as well. Also looking at during the functional safety classes, looking at the multi-point DFMEAs. So making sure everything gets covered there. So these are just more things that we'll be looking at in those classes. Okay. And then VDA IS TISAX 27001. This is what's going to be covered within those classes. Understanding the requirements for TISAX, understanding the requirements for 27001. Internal auditor training. Okay, lead auditor training for information security systems. Okay, so understanding for TISAX and auditor training for that, as well as lead auditor training for TISAX. Okay. Questions that that came up. Miles, maybe you can answer this one. Can we share this presentation to the attendees of this webinar? Because those are the only questions I have at this. So for those of you asking, I will inquire with the office to see if this can be shared. I'm not positive it can be, but I don't know. So I will ask the office. Okay, thank you for your time and have a wonderful day. And look forward to seeing you at the next webinar.